The evolution of Kung Fu's staples. Back in the day, what was it, 2004 or something like that? Before that, 2001. Anyway, ever since the game came out, and certain things started becoming available, like Giant Trunade, the Joey structure deck, along with the scapegoats and whatnot. I definitely played 3 Giant Trunades because I was able to play 3 Giant Trunades. One, because I had 3 Giant Trunades. I had a whole bunch of them. Also, no tournament playing, and there was no ban list at the time. But then when the ban list started coming in, then some of these cards started withering down to 2 and 1, and then ultimately ban and then unban and all that tourney fun stuff, right? But anyway, regardless, I used to play 3 Giant Trunades. Every deck I designed and build had 3 Giant Trunades. That was always to get rid of the back row, so that way you can do what you wanted. Plus, it allowed you to reuse certain cards. I preferred Premature Burial way over Monster Reborn because I can combine with Giant Trunade, so I can get more than one monster on the field, while Monster Reborn can only get you just one monster. So, depends on how you played it, but Premature Burial Giant Trunade was a much better combo because they work so well together. Same thing as Call of Haunted Jinzo, Giant Trunade, Call of Haunted, and boom, you get to use Call of Haunted again later. Same goes for Gravity Bind. Play Gravity Bind, your opponent's monsters can't attack your turn. Once you have the ability to sit, do something, make a comeback, then you Giant Trunade. Now you can drop your monsters, and then now you can attack. Set your back row again, and then boom, if they summon a whole bunch of big monsters and they try to attack you, Gravity Bind, and then you Giant Trunade, and kept going on and on like that. But over time, and of course because of this channel, there's a lot of people who play Yu-Gi-Oh! Play because they want to go to tournaments and whatnot. They want to play competitively and all that stuff. Tournament play. And because you can't use 3 Giant Trunades in your decks, that's why I don't create decks that have 3 Giant Trunades, which I normally would. But since you can't play tournament legally, as it were, with 3 Giant Trunades, that's why none of my decks are designed with 3 Giant Trunades. So I had to find some replacement. I had to find some way to get rid of the back row, so that way you can play all your best tricks. And I'm a combo player, so I can't just summon one monster and then that'd be it. I plan to do a whole bunch of stuff in a single turn, so I need the ability to get rid of my opponent's back row, so he can't stop me from doing what I'm trying to do. So, moving on. So I evolved into Bait Doll because tournament play is trap heavy. Everybody playing a whole bunch of back row, as they call it now. So they're trap heavy. They always have some face down card ready to stop you, and typically it's just counters. The whole idea is just to counter everything you do, is to stop you from doing what you do, and then they go off, then they do their thing. So how do you counteract that? Well, obviously you counteract that with back row hate. You counteract that with cards that get rid of those cards, so that way you can do what you gotta do. So then, since I can't use Giant Trunade to get rid of my opponent's back row, I use Bait Doll. And since Bait Doll is not enough to get rid of everything, I combined it with MST. So I got Bait Doll and MST in the deck, and that helps with the back row. And since I go from designing 48 card decks to 40 card decks for tournament play, since everybody likes playing 40 instead of anything higher than 40, I add Heavy Storm to continue with the back row hate. So pretty much anytime I draw a spell card, it's going to get rid of something that my opponent has face down ready for me. So I draw a spell, takes care of back row. So that's the main purpose of my spells, is to get rid of back row. Unless I add a spell that I need, like a field spell or something like that, or Solidarity, Access Spare, or something extra that can help the deck, especially if the deck is based off of a spell or something. Then I add that card to help the deck run. But typically all my spells are just to get rid of back row. so that way my monsters can do their job and fight and play the game. Because you don't deal damage and you don't win games with just spells and traps, so they help, but they don't win you the duels right off the bat, unless you're running chain burn. That's the only exception, I guess, or final countdown. Anyway, point is, my spells get rid of back rolls. My traps are for my opponent's turn, obviously, to get rid of his monsters and any other card they might have, especially if they play a field spell or spell card that gives them an advantage. So you gotta get rid of that, especially if they're running samurais and they're dropping the gates and samurais united and all this stuff, and it's like, oh man, he's gonna go ultimate, so I gotta stop that. I gotta get rid of that gates. So that's where the MST comes in. That's where the Regeki breaks come in. Shit, I mean, I could just, yeah, that's mainly where the Regeki breaks come in. Like, let's get rid of that gates right quick. Well, here we go. Regeki break. Regeki break is because it's multi-purpose. It gets rid of any card I want. It destroys anything. So instead of just limiting myself to just getting rid of monsters or just getting rid of back row, I have Regeki break, which does either one or. Imagine if I had compulse instead, right? I had compulse on the field. My opponent plays a field spell, drops a Malefic Cyber, for example. It's like, yeah, I could compulse his Malefic Cyber, but then he'll just re-drop it, and I failed. But with Regeki break, I can destroy the field spell, which in turn destroys the Malefic Cyber, so I win. So it's a 2 for 2 if you want to look at it that way, since I have to discard. So the cost of discarding a card is worth it because I get rid of something that I really want to get rid of, something that was really a problem. So that's why I upgraded from using compulse to Regeki break. So I use Regeki break more than I use compulse now in most of my designs. But compulse is great in many ways, mainly because you can get rid of exceed monsters, you can mess up certain plays. But Regeki, both Regeki break and compulse both have importance, because they both will do pretty much the same thing. They'll disrupt something. They'll cause a problem. Somebody summons Rabbit. Okay, let him do the effect. He brings out 2 Valena monsters. Compulse one of them. Alright, he already did his normal summon. You can't drop that Valena, so the other one will get banished. There you go. You just disrupted his play. Same as, you know, he summons Tour Guide. He brings out another Tour Guide. It's like, alright, he overlays, makes Zen main or something. Alright, compulse. Boom, now you just neg 3 cards. I mean, 2 cards. Because he could always make Zen main again later. But the point is at least he doesn't have Zen main on the field, which is important. But of course, sometimes it's not your opponent's monsters that's the problem. Sometimes it's their back row. Sometimes it's a spell card or a trap card that they have that's a problem. Sometimes their monsters can't be destroyed, so that's why you use compulse. Like, you know, if you're going up against them and you compulse it, you can't Regeki break them. You could, but it would be a bad idea. That's why Karma Cut comes into play, because Karma Cut doesn't destroy, and it'll permanently get rid of the monster. So you neg 2 just so he negs 3. But you know, you don't want to compulse. Like if you're battling against a Dark World deck, you don't want to compulse Graphic to the hand, because they'll just pitch it and go crazy and beat you anyway. So Karma Cut's better. Same goes for Machina Fortress. You don't want to compulse Machina, because he'll just resummon it. Karma Cut. You don't want to compulse Cyber Dragon, because he'll just resummon it. So you compulse, so forth and so forth. So there's many reasons that I upgraded from compulse to Regeki break and Karma Cut, because these cards will permanently get rid of something at the cost of a card. Compulse is nice because I don't have to discard to use it, but usually what I compulse does come back and bite me in the ass later, so to avoid it coming back, I use Regeki break or Karma Cut, which will permanently get rid of them to a certain degree. Because of course you can always Monster Reborn a monster, you can always Leviar or DDR the monster back from play. Obviously something that goes to the graveyard out of play doesn't stay there very long, but I'd rather take the chance than compulsing, guaranteeing that monster will come back. whether it be in the same turn or the next turn. I would rather my opponent use up more cards to get their monsters back than for them to just, oh, okay, I'll summon it again later. Save zone. Upgrade. Well, the thing with save zone is that I use save zone in replacement of Gravity Bind. Gravity Bind to me is a staple. It's been a staple for years. I found only one card that technically replaces Gravity Bind, but because of its cost, I don't play it commonly, and that is Red Screen. I would love to use Red Screen instead of Gravity Bind. It is definitely a better upgrade effect wise to Gravity Bind. The only problem is it has a cost that it's not. I've experimented, I retried it. It's not like I looked at the cards like, damn, I'm paying $1,000 a month. I mean, $1,000 every turn. Well, I'm definitely not playing this. No, I definitely played it, but I've been in many duels where that's backfired. That $1,000 a turn doesn't last long enough. If it was 500 every end phase, wouldn't be a problem. I could work with that. But 1,000, that's too much. That's too much for so little, because one, I don't get that many turns to survive with Red Screen. Red Screen slowly withers my life points down to a point where it no longer will be on the field, or my opponent burns me or MSTs it and then finishes me off with one single attack, you know, which wouldn't happen if it wasn't for the fact that, you know, Red Screen was weakening me, and since it weakens me, that's the reason why I don't play it. You know, some decks I might tweak it here and there, like I might throw it in, especially if it benefits me to lose life points, then I definitely use Red Screen. If it benefits me to do a combo where I use Red Screen, like a Miss Valley deck, I use it with Miss Valley Falcon, if I'm right, because I could always bounce it to my hand. I could protect Falcon, then when I attack, bounce it to my hand, set it, and it'll be a free Gravity Bind basically. So it has a use, which is why I always keep it in mind. But that whole paying 1,000 does become problematic. I like a card that I could just play by itself and it does what it's supposed to do. So until I find something that's like Red Screen without a cost, I'm gonna stick with Gravity Bind until I find something better. So my thing is, I want to play something other than Gravity Bind. It's just the fact that nothing else does what Gravity Bind does. Gravity Bind I could just play for free, and the only thing is if they use level 3s or lower, alright, they deal damage. If they exceed summon, alright, they're gonna deal damage. But other than that, Gravity Bind does stop pretty much everything else. And until I find something better that doesn't have an extreme cost, then so be it. I also noticed Bubble Bringer. Bubble Bringer is cool, you know, but the only problem is that mainly I like using Gravity Bind to protect my monsters more than protect me. And Bubble Bringer only counts for when your opponent's trying to attack me directly. They can't. But if I had monsters, they can gladly attack my monsters, and that's not what I want. I don't want them to attack my monsters. I want my monsters to stay. The whole point is longevity. I want my monsters to stay so they can win me the duel. So that's what Gravity Bind's for. So in decks where Gravity Bind will be too much of a problem, I use Save Zone. So I use Save Zone as a substitute. You know, it's multi-purpose, has a couple different reasons to be used and whatnot. So, you know, I mean, basically makes your monster a god. So I can't argue with that effect. But at the same time, it's no Gravity Bind. It's good enough if I use it in a combo with a monster like Notorious Beast or something, you know, something that can protect Save Zone, then it's a great card. And usually if I really need to keep a monster on the field long periods of time, but I also need to be able to attack, I use Save Zone. Like I use Save Zone in Counter Fairies to keep my forgot the name of it, but my fairy where I counter, I draw, I counter, I draw. So I use Save Zone in decks of that nature where I need a monster to stay on the field so I can constantly get their effect. Or if I have a Banisher, Radiance or something, then Save Zone it or something. Or if I have Christia, then I Save Zone Christia, you know, so forth and so forth, stuff like that. And lock my opponent, fossil dynas, so forth, so forth. Any monsters you want on the field permanently. That way they can constantly do their effects. I save zone them, so that way they'll be protected, and they'll do their job for as long as they can. Begone Knave. It's a very rare card to use. To me, it's a continuous compulse. I have to take some damage to get rid of my opponent's monster, but also as a plus that if I deal damage, my monsters go back to my hand, which is good if I want to reuse a monster effect. Like, let's say I flip Mass of Darkness, right? So I flip Mass of Darkness, get Compulse, for example, set Compulse, attack with Mass of Darkness, deal 900 damage, add them to my hand, set them again, and there you go. Then my opponent summons a monster, I Compulse it. Then my turn, I flip Mass of Darkness, get Compulse again, and it just becomes like a little infinite loop. So in combos, and in certain decks like Cloudians and whatnot, it's a weapon. One, with Cloudians you get to use their effects again and again. Since you bounce them to your hand and you resummon them and they get their fall counters again, you could use their effects again. So I definitely use Begone Knave and Cloudians. Plus they don't die by battle, so when your opponent attacks them and you take some damage, they lose their monster. Their monster is not on the field anymore. Then you use your fall counters, do what you do, attack, bounce them to your hand, resummon them, get more fall counters, do what you do, all types of stuff. So just depends on which deck to use it. You could also use it in a deck where you benefit from monsters going to your hand. You can use it with the degeneration circuit, so that way whenever your opponent deals you some damage, their monster will be removed from play instead of just going to the hand. So that's a strategy right there. So there's different reasons to play Begone Knave. Begone Knave just generally good. Begone Knave with save zone is not bad, because your opponent's monsters will keep going back to their hand. Defense deck, if somebody's playing defense and their defense is pretty high, you take a little damage, get rid of the defense monster, and go in for the kill. But mainly these cards like Save Zone, Begone Knave, Red Screen, and even Scrap Iron Scarecrow, these are all interchangeable replacements for Gravity Bind. But it's been years since I've been using Gravity Bind, like what, 11 years, and still have not truly replaced Gravity Bind. Gravity Bind is going to be a staple for a long time. Hopefully Konami sees this video and realizes, and understands that, hey, we need to create a new Gravity Bind to make Kung Fu happy. That I could finally replace Gravity Bind and play something else. Call the Haunted, just because it's a good card. But also it's the fact that you can resurrect stuff, and that's always important. Not only do I need the ability to get rid of back roll, get rid of some of my opponent's bigger, stronger monsters, or monsters that just have an effect that gives them the advantage, I also need the ability to bring my monsters back if fortunately they end up in the graveyard, whether it be by a card effect or by battle or something. They're important to me. I need my monsters on the field doing their job. So Call the Haunted lets me bring them back, especially if they leave during my opponent's turn. I can bring them back. Sometimes you top deck, it's like I have nothing on the field, I draw, Call the Haunted, perfect, set. This will buy me another turn. Call the Haunted something, Blue Eyes or Machine of Fortress or something, summon, and I'll be able to defend myself, or Ally Caster or something, something that will make a difference. And Heavy Storm. I typically don't like destroying stuff. Like, destroying stuff is not my thing. As you notice, a large majority of these cards don't destroy. Like Gravity Bind don't destroy, Red Screen don't destroy, obviously, Scrap Iron Scarecrow don't destroy, Karma Cut, Compulse don't destroy, Giant Trune don't destroy. It's just because that's my philosophy, that's my way of dueling. It's my way of doing things. Right? Heavy Storm, you know, destroys, but because I need to get rid of my opponent's back row, and I don't need to get rid of it for just one turn like I do with Giant Trunade, I use Heavy Storm to get rid of back row. That's the reason why I use it. If it wasn't for back row, if it wasn't for my opponent setting up traps and whatnot, I wouldn't be playing Heavy Storm. I actually wouldn't even be playing any of these cards to destroy back row. I would just play cards to destroy my opponent's monsters, to protect my monsters, and then I attack my opponent with my monsters for game. If it wasn't for the fact that my opponent has traps and spells and stuff in their back row that protects their monsters, that destroys my monsters. So because they have the same abilities as I do, they have the ability to get rid of my stuff just like I have the ability to get rid of their stuff, I gotta put these cards in. I wouldn't be playing Bait Dolls and MSTs and Heavy Storm in the decks at all if it wasn't for back row. But because of back row, I gotta use it. You know, once this game gets to the point where, which may never happen, but if it does get to a point where I don't have to worry about spells and traps, you know, it's just be a game of monsters similar to a Cardfight Vanguard. That's why that's just such a pretty cool game to a certain degree, because there's no spells and traps, there's no warning and no judgment and none of that stuff. It's all monsters versus monsters, and it's all about strategy. You know, the strategy is to minimize the luck factor, because for you to get a trigger that's basically based off of luck, it's a mathematical equation, blah blah blah, all this stuff. But if you design your deck well enough where you can minimize the luck factor and guarantee more triggers, and you know, guarantee a strategy and guarantee to deal more damage, so that way you can win the duel, and then you win. That's where the skills come in, and then that's what makes it fun, because the critical trigger just adds to the element, adds to the funness. Like, ho ho, I just got something that's amazing, as opposed to like first hand, okay, I got all the nuts, alright, rabbit, make YUGIOH, set back roll, now I got everything I need to stop my opponent's cards and win the duel based off of that concept. It's like yeah, you know, shit, I love Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm not saying I don't. Shit, it's fun, you know, when somebody's doing their best to beat you and whatnot. It adds to the game. That's why it's dueling. I consider myself a duelist because that's what I do. I'm dueling. It's a mental aspect. It's my thought. It's my intelligence versus my opponent's intelligence. Now Konami fucks that up because they create rulings and stuff that's not even written on the cards that they expect you to know, like the TK, you know, Thunder King and Roach. You know, it doesn't state on the card that they do inherit summons. How you supposed to know you can only stop monsters that special summon themselves? It says negate the special summon of a monster. That means if I call Haunted or Monster Born a monster, you should be able to use Thunder King and Roach's effect against them. But apparently you can't, because they only do inherit summons. Same thing as Horn of Heaven, it only does inherit summons. It's like, then an inherit summon should be a freaking term. It should be in the rule books. It should be a type of summoning, like flip summon, normal summon, special summon, inherit summons. Like that should be in the list. Tribute summons, you know what I mean? That's crazy. Like, inherit summons, when did that come into play, right? I guess since Cyber Dragon or something. But the point is like, a special summon is a special summon. If the card says that it stops a special summon, it should stop a special summon. Now I do take advantage of the fact that my opponent can't stop, you know, some of my special summons that are special summoned by effects that they're not inherent. So I take advantage of that. But it's the fact that it's corny, because it causes problems, because somebody who's not experienced, who doesn't look up all the rulings for every card they play, you know, they'll just go off of what the card says, and the card tells them, it clearly states it can't stop a special summon. And if I Monster Born a monster, that is a special summon. If I fusion summon monster, ritual summon monster, that is a special summon. They feel they are allowed to use their effect to stop it, because the card says they can. But according to Konami, they cannot, which is stupid. If they could not do that, then you state it. You state what it can and can't do. You know what I mean? It should be written. There's enough space on Thunder King for you to write that it stops only some special summons of a monster that special summons itself as a summoning condition. That's another thing. There's a difference between summoning condition and an effect that special summons. You know, Grapha's ability to come back from the graveyard by bouncing a Dark World to your hand, that's a summoning condition. That's not an effect. You know what I mean? So BLS, removing Light and Dark to summon him, that's not an effect. That's a summoning condition. So then you go into the whole max C rulings and all that other stuff. So there's a lot of stupid stuff because Konami fucked it up. Instead of making it plain and simple, that this does this does that, boom. And it's funny because they copied off of Magic. They totally ripped off of Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering's been doing great when it comes to making it clear and obvious what a card does. They've mastered the whole concept of writing down the text, so that way you are fully understand what is and is. Because Yu-Gi-Oh does not really have. Slowly they've been trying to add the ability for you to know that if something is a cost, but you don't always know it's a cost. You look at the card, it says discard a card, do something. You don't know that's a cost. It says discard a card and do something. To you, it's an effect of the card to discard a card and do something. It doesn't specifically say pay this cost. Pay by discarding a cost. To activate this card, discard a card, then do an effect to activate. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't specifically says. It doesn't have like a logo. There's no logo, like a little symbol on it that lets you know that, hey, this is a cost to do this. Like this should have a little symbol that lets you know that you have to discard a card. Like a little symbol of a Yu-Gi-Oh card, like a little Yu-Gi-Oh card on there with 2 dots and then the effect of the card. That way you know you have to discard a card as a cost. Discarding a card is a cost, is a payment for the card to even be used. That way there wouldn't be no debate. No one would be arguing that, hey, but it doesn't say it's a cost and all this other stuff, or it is a cost because you discarded and all this stuff. And you have to try to figure out what is and isn't. And then the when and the if stuff that's missing the time and not missing the time, mandatory effects, that's stupid. Stuff that you can't skill drain. Like there's some effects you can't skill drain because they're what I call them. I call them static effects. These are static effects. These are rules. It's just a rule of the game that you can't use Majestic Dragon for Synchro Summon unless it's a Majestic Synchro you're bringing out. So you can't skill drain it, extra pull it. You can't do nothing to negate its effect to use it as a Synchro material for anything else. And that's stupid because it's an effect monster. Anything that negates a monster's effect should negate it. Period. It means it negates the whole text of the card. It's ridiculous that it's like this is one exception. It's like, whoa, then you should just write it there. Write it that this is not an effect. This is a rule. Call it static effect. Just write static, little minus sign, and put that it can only be used for such and such. That way we all know what it means. Even somebody who's new to the game, if they read the rule book, they know what a static effect is. They know it cannot be skill drained, it cannot be veilered, it cannot be negated. And that'd be simple, and there'd be a lot less drama in Yu-Gi-Oh. Anyway, this is not about the stupidity or the evolution of Yu-Gi-Oh. This is the evolution of my staples. Sometimes I use Monster Reborn depending if the deck requires it. Dark Hole. Ginger Heart is old school, of course. Card Destruction as opposed to Pot of Greed. That's what I used to play back in the day. It has many purposes, mainly because I could discard. You know, I can mess up my opponent's best plans, especially if he has a bad poker face and he's like, you know, he's like happy that he has something in his hands. And it's like, oh, he has some good cards in his hand. All right, let me set some stuff up. Let me get rid of those good cards. You know. And plus it helps me in case I don't have such a good hand. I can set some cards I want to keep, then card destruction the rest, and hopefully draw what I really need and win the duel. Sometimes you could just win by card destruction alone. Card destruction is a win condition. You know, you can deck somebody out with it. Premature Burial because it's a reusable Monster Reborn. And if my plus, I prefer play Premature Burial over Monster Reborn because Monster Reborn gives you the impression that it's okay to take your opponent's monster and beat him with it and win with your opponent's monster. To me, that's a sign of weakness. I mean, everybody, looks at the game differently. It's like, to them it's just a card game, you know what I mean? It's just a card game. Doesn't matter. If I have an ability to take my opponent's monster, then I'm gonna take his monster and win with it. I don't care. I don't have no honor. It's a game. There's no honor and there's no respect in the game. It's just a game. I play to win. I don't care about other people's feelings, or I don't care about these cards. They're just pieces of paper, blah blah, whatever. However you feel about things, then if that's how you feel, then you shouldn't even play the game, because it's not for you. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be playing a game that you don't care about, like you don't respect. It's like everything you do in life you should respect. You should respect what you do. Like you should respect your wife, your husband, whatever. You respect people around you. Respect your job, because it's your job. It's what feeds you. It's what gives you money to live, right? So respect your job and whatnot. So respect anything you do. You play Yu-Gi-Oh, you should be respectful. You shouldn't be a douchebag. Anyway, I prefer premature reveal because my monsters deserve the respect that I use them to win me duels, as opposed to grabbing my opponent's monsters to win me a duel. It shows weakness in the deck design if you have to grab your opponent's monster in order to win. Grabbing your own monsters should be sufficient enough to win you a duel. So make sure you have the right stuff in your deck to win you a duel. And the right stuff will be what I'm showing you: Compulse, Regeki Break, Karma Cut, Gravity Bind, Scrap Iron Scarecrow, Call to Haunted, Beito, MST. These are cards that will win you duels. They're worth playing because they can win you duels. I know some people had a problem with Compulse at one time. Now we're in the meta where Compulse is a must-have. A lot of people like the idea of using Compulse now. It's like, that's a surprise. Compulse was always a good card. It was never a bad card. It was a great card when it first came out. It was because back then the way we got rid of a big monster on the field was with Hain. That was one way of getting rid of like a big monster on the field, especially if it was a fusion or something. You use Hain to get rid of your opponent's monster. For them to create a trap version of Hain, it's like, oh my god, a trap that can return a monster on the field to the hand. Oh my god, that's amazing, great. And then you find combos with it. Let's say you had a face down a Cyber Jar. Somebody plays Swords of Revealing Light. Alright? The Swords of Revealing Light resolves. Cyber Jar flips over. Cyber Jar's effect activates. You chain to his activation by playing Compulse, bouncing him right back to your hand. Then his effect still resolves. He does not have to be on the field to resolve. So his effect still resolves, and you plus a whole bunch of cards. And you have him for later. That was always great. Something you couldn't really do so easily, if you had to put Cyberjar and Hain on the field to try to get that combo off. You did this with a trap. Compulse was great. Plus, Compulse, you could chain. It was chainable. So if your opponent did play like, Heavy Storm or Harpies or whatever they had back then, you can chain it and get rid of something anyway. Especially if the reason why they were trying to get rid of your back was because they were going to tribute for a monster. If you compulse their monster, now they can't tribute. Now you just messed them all up. So now it was just a whole waste of their turn, and that was always great. I can go on and on with other cards, but these are the reasons why I use a lot of these cards. These are not only the reasons I use these cards. There's tons of other reasons. Discarding for Regeki and Karma Cut gives me advantages in certain duels. Sometimes it could put me in a situation where I'm slightly disadvantaged, where my opponent has more cards than me, but I always turn around and win the duel anyway because I got rid of their best cards in the first place. Me discarding a card to get rid of a card, obviously I played it right. So as long as I play the cards right, I win. So Regeki Break, Karma Cut it's player preference. It's more, if you want to play Warning instead of Karma Cut and Compulse as opposed to playing Regeki Break or something, whatever. If you'd rather play other cards as opposed to Regeki Break and Karma Cut, yeah, that's cool. That's your decision. If you like to sacrifice life points to get rid of something, then go ahead. That's on you. But I like versatility. I like cards that do multiple things. It would be nice a Compulse that can also get rid of something. Or a Karma Cut where I don't have to discard, that'd be great. A Regeki Break where I don't have to discard, that'd be great. I would definitely replace. That's the thing, is that I'm waiting for cards that let me replace these cards. That let me replace Gravity Bind, Karma Cut, Regeki Break. The reason Think about it. I upgraded from Compulse to Karma Cut. You know what I mean? Upgraded to a stronger effect, a better effect, that works better now than it used to work before. Because right now you got monsters that keep coming back from the graveyard, and you want to get rid of them permanently. The game is changing, and that's the thing. The game changed. New cards come out. Decks get stronger because stronger cards come out. So people create stronger stuff. You know, Compulse wasn't going to last forever. It wasn't going to win every single duel for the past 11 years. Eventually I had to upgrade from Compulse to something stronger, and it's like, hey, that's the strongest thing I could find so far that's above Compulse's Karma Cut. It does have a cost, but I can make it work, and I have been making it work, and it has been working. So anyway, this is the evolution of my staples.